Wow, che platea. Benvenuti, benvenute.
What a great group. Welcome, welcome everybody. It's truly wonderful to have you here and lovely to be together in order to safeguard the earth and defend the most fragile. 10 years of Laudato Si, a future of hope and climate justice. Raising Hope for Climate Justice. This is an international meeting organized in Castel Gandolfo, and it celebrates the 10 years from the encyclical letter Laudato Si. It will gather religious leaders, scientists, activists, and representatives of the institution with a common objective, that of reflecting on what has so far been done for the stewardship of creation and to relaunch commitment for the future. In order to present it here today, we have Cardinal Jaime Spengler, Archbishop of Porto Alegre, the President of the Bishops' Conference of Brazil and CELAM. Benvindo. Dr. Lorna Gold, Executive Director of the Laudato Si Movement, Sister Alessandra Smerilli, the Secretary of the Dicastery for the Service to Integral Human Development, Honorable Arnold Schwarzenegger, previously Governor of California and President of the Schwarzenegger Institute, Honorable Dr. Maina Talia, Minister of Home Affairs, Climate Change and of the Environment in Tuvalu. Welcome, everyone. This press conference is streamed live in 5 languages on our YouTube channel, Vatican News, and offers the opportunity also to our colleagues following us remotely to integrate with their comments via Zoom and to intervene. Therefore, allow me to take this opportunity and to thank the Technology Directorate of the Dicastery and our interpreters, English, French, Spanish and Portuguese. Thank you from the English booth. So I wish you all a profitable time here, and I give the floor to Cardinal Spengler, who we know is a supporter of environmental justice, integral ecology, who safeguards indigenous terroirs, sustainable agriculture and the common good by denouncing climate solutions based on profit. He marries up his Franciscan spirituality, as we will hear, with a strong social and environmental commitment, trying to guide the Latin American Church towards a more just and sustainable future. Over to you, Your Eminence. Thank you. And thank you for the opportunity. This is the opportunity also to be able to speak in the good Portuguese language. Thank you kindly. Thank you, Sister Alessandra. It's always a pleasure to find you here. And also Arnold, who is an idol of our youth through cinema and so on. And I thought you would be bigger even in height. But the screen sometimes, I think, might cause some transformation, put it that way. I've been given only a few minutes, so I will try to observe the time allotted to me. And now in Portuguese. We live in a technocratic model which is based on ingenuity, and I imagine that reality, good and truth flourish spontaneously from the very power of technology and economy. This model places the human body, the human person, at the place of God, making man a danger for himself. This is what we see in many sectors of human cohabitation. We find ourselves in a historic time which is marked by a range of crises, and these produce anguish, and perhaps this is the reason why we are here today. This is a form of anguish in the etymological meaning of the word, not the psychological sense of the word. We cannot deny the challenges that this mistreated planet of ours is imposing on us. The signs are clear. We live in times which are marked by danger. This is the danger of arriving at a point of no return, a no go back zone, a point of breakage. However, I would like to quote some poetry here. And speaking about poetry, Hölderlin, we could say that where there is danger, a savior is also born. To preserve requires stewardship. It's what Francis of Assisi and Francis, the Pope of Rome, have reminded us of more than once. I believe that we need to rediscover the ability and the need to venerate the earth. It is true that we are losing, or perhaps we have already lost, the ability to hear the earth. She is crying as she gives birth. Extreme phenomena are taking place with greater frequency, and these are clear expressions of a silent disease which impacts all of us, especially the more vulnerable, the poorest. And my region last year has suffered one of these climate tragedies, which continues to mark our day-to-day, even today. There is a lot of suffering, a lot of destruction, and many deaths. The reason behind this unusual speed, according to scientific data, is in the immense progress linked to the intervention of humans on nature in the last 2 centuries. The ecological crisis is a crisis in trust as well. And we quote Pope Leo, "The world will not be saved unless nations recover the need to believe in one another and to take on responsibility which is shared and founded on a principle of justice." If on the one hand the horizon is dominated by the market technocracy, which is destroying many ecosystems, is clearly visible. On the other hand, we need, and I repeat, we need to feed hope. Without hope, we see a horizon which gives us the invisibility on overcoming what is currently afflicting us. And we need to start from grassroots. This is important. We need to start from the bottom, from the poor, originary indigenous people, from the smaller ones among our society. These are demands which remind us of the primacy of the human person, the defense of his or her dignity. They are telling us that ethics needs to prevail on contingent interests. Let us hope that COP30, which will take place in Belen, will be the opportunity for courageous and ethical decisions. These are decisions of statesmen and women who are not only devoted to political ambitions, but true statespersons. These decisions are necessary so that future generations may have better days. When we deal with climate change and the energy transition, we cannot deal with it in a romantic manner. This is a human problem, and it is a social one in a wider ranging sense with repercussions in many fields. And therefore, quoting Laudato Deum, it is necessary to find the courage in order to find an efficient and binding transition which can be monitored. The Global South, as I close, I will say that the Global South is engaged so that the problem is dealt with now. The ecological crisis and climate warming is not something which can be postponed. We are on the boundary of what is possible, and science is telling us this. Soon there will be no turning back. We need to convert now. There are no lasting changes without cultural changes, without maturing our manner of life and developing the beliefs of society. There are no cultural changes without a change in every person, and therefore it's always important in our mission as a community of faith to remember that the planet can, of course, continue without us, but the opposite is certainly not true. Thank you. Thank you, Your Eminence. And we recall to mind that a few months ago there was a prophetic message from the south of the world to COP30 when Catholic bishops of Asia, Africa, Latin America, and you were here in the newsroom, launched this historic appeal in view of the United Nations conference. And now Dr. Lorna Gold, a theologian, a Scottish-born theologian, who lives in Ireland, and she is a leader in climate justice. She is executive director of the Laudato Si Movement, guiding faith communities worldwide to address climate change and promote ecological justice, social justice. Her work is based on the belief that faith communities have a transformative potential in order to deal with the climate crisis. And therefore, I invite you to take the floor and ask you to present the Laudato Si 10 pledges, which is 10 pledge, which is the commitment launched by the Laudato Si movement in order to translate into concrete action the principles of COP30. Over to you.
For your attendance here at this conference to mark Raising Hope, a conference which starts tomorrow in Castel Gandolfo. The conference has been organised by the Laudato Si movement, which is the global movement that came to life in light of Laudato Si 10 years ago. The conference has also been planned in close collaboration with leading member organisations and partners, namely the Vatican Dicastery of Integral Human Development, Caritas Internationalis, SIDSI, the International Union of Superiors General, Focolare Movement, and the Ecclesial Networks Alliance. Tomorrow we expect around 1,000 people to join us in Castel Gandolfo for the opening ceremony with His Holiness Pope Leo XIV, which will be transmitted live on Vatican Media. There will then be a 2-day working conference with 500 invited delegates to continue working on Thursday and Friday. We are delighted that a number of leading voices, including our distinguished guests here on this panel, have accepted our invitation to join us at this historic juncture. In addition to the main conference programme, tomorrow morning in the Borgo Laudato Si, there will be a COP30 Global Ethical Stocktake event for 35 chosen faith leaders, with the Honourable Marina Silva, the Minister for Environment from Brazil. There will also be a Laudato Si festival to celebrate 10 years of the life of our movement, reflecting the vibrancy and richness of initiatives right across the world in response to the ecological crisis. Pope Francis urged us to not give in to despair, but to sing as we go, believing that even in the most challenging times, such as we're living in now, hope can prevail and things can change. This unprecedented collaboration between Catholic organisations, in partnership with leading voices from culture, from many faiths and civil society, comes just 1 month before COP30. We know that our leaders are not making adequate progress towards safeguarding our climate for future generations. Despite the growing urgency of this crisis and the injustice it represents to both the world's poor and to our Mother Earth, we are dismayed at the lack of progress to shift away from fossil fuels without delay, as Pope Francis urged us in 2015, and again in Laudato Deum in 2023. We call on all governments to publish immediately ambitious NDCs, nationally determined commitments, and to commit the financial resources promised and required to turn around this situation. Whilst we make this urgent plea to our governments to take action, we are not prepared to wait. Our conference this week is about seeing how we, as non-state actors with very significant outreach to millions of people right across the world, can step up. How can we go faster and deeper to bring about the change we need? What collaborations can enable us to do this and have greater impact? We are really happy that so many global leaders from the world of climate philanthropy, business, civil society, culture, science are joining us this week to look at how we do this and build new partnerships. By the end of this week, we want to launch a new pledge, a pledge in memory of Pope Francis to mark the 10th anniversary of Laudato Si, inviting all those present at the conference, those who will be connected via the live stream, and those who we will meet afterwards, to set out our collective ambition to fulfill the vision of Laudato Si. This collective pledge will be delivered to COP30 as a planetary determined commitment, or a people's determined commitment, which can sit alongside the nationally determined commitments prepared by countries and contribute to the global ethical stocktake. Finally, I was appointed into my role as Executive Director of Laudato Si Movement just weeks before Pope Francis died. I had the great honour of meeting him on the day of my appointment, hours before he was admitted to hospital. When he said goodbye to me that day, not knowing it would be for the final time, he said to me, "Vai avanti, go ahead." Some have asked me since, will the vision of Laudato Si continue after Pope Francis? My answer to that is a resounding yes, because it is already a global movement. Since Pope Francis passed, Pope Leo XIV has demonstrated his own personal commitment to continue this mission through new initiatives such as the new Mass for Creation and the inauguration of the Borgo Laudato Si, and of course his attendance at our conference tomorrow. The passing of Pope Francis has energised our whole movement, for we now feel it like a sacred duty to be a legacy, to bring his leadership and commitment to our work. In the coming years, we will continue to raise hope everywhere, as he directed us to, with a spirit of joy and determination. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lorna. It is true, we cannot afford to be resigned nor to be late. We need to take our strength and transform this into our own commitment. It was a moving testimony when you mentioned Pope Francis and now the continuum with Pope Leo. We now listen to Sister Alessandra, whom we know very well, and as well as her institutional commitment, she is a teacher of economic politics and statistics at the Pontifical Faculty of Auxilium Sciences. And she is a bridge builder between faith, economy, sustainability in order to promote a society which is more just and more respectful for the environment, focusing on ecological, environmental and social themes through an approach of integral human development. Of course, over to you, Sister. Thank you everyone. Thank you for being here. And thank you to those who are linked up with us. It is a joy and a pleasure to be able to contribute today to mark this press conference, which represents the beginning of a very significant event, the celebration of the 10th anniversary of the encyclical letter Laudato Si during the Jubilee year of hope and with the presence of the Holy Father. Firstly, I would like to thank the Laudato Si movement represented here by the Executive Director Lorna for having organized this conference involving the participation of eminent personalities from the ecclesial, social, scientific and political world. This is a good example of an outgoing church. With Laudato Si 10 years ago, Pope Francis delivered to us a text which was not just a document of the magisterium, but a true navigation chart for our times. With prophetic words, he reminded us that everything is linked up with everything else and that the stewardship of our common home is inseparable from justice towards the poor, peace amongst people, and the affirmation of the dignity of every human being. In this decade, Laudato Si was able to touch not only the conscience of the faithful, but also the consciences of the men and women of goodwill throughout the world. It has become a source of inspiration for many in the most diverse contexts. Today, we can say that it has generated a true global and widespread networked movement, and the Laudato Si movement is one of the most colourful expressions and continues to grow and to feed into new initiatives for the safeguard of creation. The dicastery for the service of the integral human development, to which the Holy Father has entrusted the mission of integrating the various development dimensions by keeping the human person at its center, has attempted in these last few years to promote and accompany concrete pathways, making the vision of the encyclical letter alive, starting from all the good that the Holy Spirit was inspiring in many local dimensions. We could say that Laudato Si has began walking with its own legs. We just tried to accompany this process. In these last few years, many local churches supported and underwent processes of ecological conversions in dioceses and parishes, schools and Catholic universities. At the same time, initiatives such as the Laudato Si Action Platform involved families, religious communities, educational establishments, and entrepreneurial firms in 7 years through more lifestyles which are enhanced in solidarity and in sustainability. This morning I listened to somebody, the coordinator of the Diocese of Lexington in the United States, who gave me a book with all the plans that every single parish in the diocese has brought about. These are very concrete, very practical in order to live out Laudato Si. Among the more recent initiatives, I wish to recall to your attention a project that Pope Francis held very dear to his heart. This is the Borgo Laudato Si village in Castel Gandolfo, which was opened by Pope Leo on the 5th of September last, and which will be the headquarters of the conference, at least partly the conference which is about to begin. This project is not just a tangible sign as to how Laudato Si can be incarnated today, but it is also a future workshop. In the areas and the spaces of the pontifical villas, we have seen rising a space where faith, ecology and culture entwine in harmony. This is a space where we can stop, halt, breathe, contemplate the beauty of nature, but also the beauty of how we can produce without generating waste, where there is a training center for children, young adults, entrepreneurs, CEOs, and more, where there is formation to work for migrants, refugees, women who were victims of violence, and more, where we wish to see and show how everything is connected. And there is not a social crisis and an environmental crisis, but there is one crisis. Therefore, it becomes a space of hope. To mark the inauguration, the Pope reminded us that the stewardship of creation represents a true responsibility and a vocation for every human being, which needs to take place within creation itself, without forgetting that we are creatures among creatures and not creators. The 10th anniversary of Laudato Si is therefore not a goal, but a new beginning. It calls us to a renewed commitment, because we know that the challenges are still great. Climate change, the loss of biodiversity, social inequality, forced migration, conflicts that have deeper and deeper environmental roots. Yet, as we said earlier, speaking among us, all these may just remain words unless our heart is touched, is impacted by what is happening, and until a desire comes about to want to respect creation. Yet, as Pope Francis reminded us, we cannot allow hope to be stolen from us. In Laudato Si, he reminds us that outer deserts are multiplied in the world because inner deserts have widened already, and that the ecological crisis is an appeal to a deep inner conversion. The encyclical letter indicates that each one of us, at a personal and community level, carries a responsibility and has the opportunity for conversion and change, first of all starting from him or herself. This is our wish, may these 3 days of prayer, reflection, witness, and celebration be especially an invitation to each one of us to look within, to return to the heart, to reconnect with God, with others, with nature. Because the future of the planet, our planet that is not just a matter which pertains to governments. It's about each one of us, our families, our communities, the way in which we produce, in which we consume, in which we relate with others and with creation. I would like to close with an exhortation by Pope Francis. Let us sing as we walk. May our struggle and our preoccupation for this planet of ours not remove the joy of hope from our hearts. This is the invitation which has strong resonance today and will accompany us in the next few days. Thank you kindly. Thank you, sister. So it's a new beginning, an invitation to hope, to convert, to be converted, and to build together a more just and sustainable future. And now we listen to Honourable Arnold Schwarzenegger, who has actively promoted environmental policies during and after his mandate as the governor of California by supporting renewable energy, electromobility, and energy efficiency, specifically through the California Solar Initiative. In 2012, he co-founded the Schwarzenegger Institute, which develops bipartisan solutions on environment, energy, learning, health, and political reform with the objective of promoting the well-being of the community through research, education, and advocacy. Is that correct?
Le diamo il nostro...
Mr. Schwarzenegger, our most warm welcome. Welcome here to the Vatican, to the newsroom. It is a real pleasure to have you with us. Your commitment to environmental protection and social justice is a valuable example to us all, and we are delighted to hear your message today. I would like to ask you, if I may, how do we do it? How do we touch the hearts of people? How can we aid everyone to understand fully and intensely how serious the situation we are going through is?
Well, thank you very much for your kind introduction. And thank you for the wonderful comments that I've heard. And I am absolutely delighted to be invited here to the Vatican and to participate in this global challenge. I'm very happy that I am invited here because I think that this is a very important moment that the Catholic Church is participating in this environmental movement. Because I've always said that this can only be accomplished if everyone works together. There's not one single human being that can manage and is able to terminate all the pollution. So therefore we have to work together, and I have seen the kind of work that has been done in the Catholic Church over the last 10 years, building this organization. And I think that you have 1.4 billion Catholics in the world. And you have 200,000 churches. And you have approximately 400,000 priests. Now imagine the power of communication that we have with that many people getting involved. Every single one of these 1.4 billion Catholics can be a crusader for the environment and can help us terminate pollution. Now, I have been there firsthand when I became governor of the state of California, where we were in a disastrous situation. How do we move this forward? How do we do it? I said, well, we can't do it by talking about it. We just have to create the action. We have to do it. And I brought the liberals and the conservatives together, and together we started passing very, very strict environmental laws. And of course we were told that we were crazy. Of course we were told that this is never going to happen. But I have a rule since the time I started getting involved in bodybuilding and in acting and in all this. Never listen to the naysayers. Because there will always be people that say, this can't be done, or this is difficult, or this has never been done before. But we did it in California. Within a short period of time, we passed the strictest environmental laws, even though they were saying that you can only protect one or the other, the economy or the environment. But we proved them the opposite. We showed to them that with the strictest environmental laws, we were able to reduce our greenhouse gases, our pollutions, by 25%. We added 1 million solar roofs. We increased the renewables from 19% to 70%. We did the cap and trade, the Green Building Initiative, one law and one principle after the other. And you know what happened with the economy? California does not only have the strictest environmental laws and has made the only progress in the United States, but we are also number one economically. But not just in the United States. We are the fourth most powerful economy in the world. Fourth, with over $4 trillion economy. So we've proven that you can, in fact, do both. Protect the economy and protect the environment. And we never listened to the federal government, because so many people today are worried about the federal government. I said, no. I said, don't look for excuses, because pollution is reduced 70% on a local and on a state level, not on a federal level. The question is always to ask yourself, what did you do to improve the environment? What did you do to go and reduce pollutions? You see what I'm saying? Each and every one of us has the power, people power. Think about the suffrage movement in America that gave women the right to vote. People power. The people did that. The civil rights movement, People did that, not the government. The independence movement in India, people did that, not the government. The anti-apartheid movement, the people did that, not the government. So don't go and just look for one hope, the government, because they're not going to solve it alone. We have had one COP conference after the other, and the UN is doing a great job bringing people together, which is very important. But the bottom line is everyone has to work together. They can't just have people from the national governments, the national leaders get together, because that alone has not solved the problem. And remember what Einstein said, insanity is to do the same thing over and over again and expect different results. There will be no different result. They have to learn how to include the subnational governments, because they can create the action. So to me, there's so many things that we can do. And you were talking just earlier about the heart. We should not communicate to the brain, because no one understands what you're talking about when you start talking about the zero emissions, and when you talk about the environmental stuff like climate change. You can ask 100 different people what climate change means, and they will come up with 100 different answers. Why not just be simple? Get rid of pollution. This is what this battle is all about, is to get rid of fossil fuels and to get rid of pollution. So it's a communication problem, because we got to communicate to the heart and not to the brain. When you see people debating in politics, do you remember the details that they were talking about? No, you just say, I like this guy, I like this guy, I like this woman or this woman. This is it, because it's the heart. And so we learned in California how to communicate the right way, because you need to have the people follow you. You cannot pass all of those environmental laws that we did without the people's support. So we stopped talking about climate change and we started talking about pollution. And pollution kills 7 million people a year. Let's talk about that. Not about the rising sea level, about the ice melting and the glacier melting, or the polar bear cannot jump from one ice to the other. This is not creating sympathy from the people and to say, I want to change. The way you make people change is when you show how little children have asthma and dying. That's what we are doing to them. We are killing the kids, we're killing people. God has put us in this world to leave this world a better place than we inherited it. This is an order from the top down. And everyone knows that, except you don't know how to do it. And this is why I'm so excited that the church, that the Catholic Church in the Vatican is getting involved in this, because we need their help. So that's why I'm so excited to be here today and to talk to you and to answer any of your questions that you have. And then tomorrow to be part of this great festivity and to meet Pope Leo tomorrow and to be on that stage with him. So I'm looking forward to all that. I'm delighted. And this is not making $1 for me, may I remind you. But it gives me the greatest joy to improve the world. It gives me the greatest joy. I've done it with the fitness movement. I've talked about it 50 years ago, how we got to train and how we got to build more gymnasiums. Everyone was laughing. Today, you can't walk into a hotel without a gymnasium and without a health club. Every military base has one. Every fire station has a weight room. Every police station has a weight room. Every university has a weight room. Every sports organization has a weight room. Every sport, everyone. Everyone is working out. We did it. And the same will be with pollution. We were doing it. Together we can do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Schwarzenegger. So we need to start from the people and the people's health, of course. And now we go far away, far away. We are going to Tuvalu. We have the Minister, Dr. Meine Thalia. 10 years after the Laudato Si encyclical letter and the Paris Accords, the global response was not at the right level. And we ask Dr. Thalia to tell us what the situation is in his country. Over to you.
First and foremost, allow me to acknowledge with great appreciation the invitation extended to me to be part of this very important conference throughout the week, and particularly for this press conference. Thank you so very much. We have listened to pollution, and now let me take you to what we call in Tuvalu the rising sea, that we bear the brunt of it. Tuvalu is one of the most vulnerable nations in the world to climate change related sea level rise. Our islands rise on average less than 2 meters above the sea. Every high tide creeps further inland. Every tropical cyclone threatens to wash our homes, churches, schools, and our communities. What for others may the future projections, for us is a present daily reality. For example, in the tropical cyclone Pam in 2015, that badly hit our islands, and the waves sweep through the island and left our people in shock. Climate change is not a distant scenario. It is an existential threat for our people, our culture, and our very survival. For my people in Tuvalu, and for many other low-lying atolls around the world, this is not a distant threat. It is here. Rising seas are swallowing our lands. But it's not only our land at stake. It is our cultures, our languages, our faith and traditions, and indeed, our very identity. Climate change really challenged our faith and raised the question of, what have we done wrong to make God angry with us? We have no military power. It's just communities living peacefully in their home islands. But we face this existential threat. For us, the difference between the 1.5 degrees and anything beyond is not an exact number. It is the difference between survival and erasure. It is forced migration, food and water insecurity, the loss of our lands and our way of life. As Pope Francis has reminded us, it is the erasure of cultural memories. For years, we have proclaimed with courage, we are not drowning, we are fighting. Yet today, I must speak with painful honesty. We are already drowning. Our survival depends on urgent global solidarity. That means cutting emissions in line with the Paris Agreement. It means ending the reckless expansion of fossil production. But survival is not just about emissions. It's about justice and accountability. Those most responsible for the crisis must honor their ecological debt. This means delivering climate finance that is fair, accessible, and does not impose new burdens on the vulnerable countries. It means fully operationalizing the loss and damage fund so that resources reach the communities that need the most. And it means ending new fossil fuel expansion while rapidly phasing out subsidies for coal, oil, and gas. At COP30, we must see legally binding timelines for a just and accountable phase-out of fossil fuels. That is why we welcome the announcement of the first international conference of ending fossil fuels in Colombia next year in April. Tuvalu was among the first to call for the process, and we urge others to join us. But climate justice is not only about the energy, it's about nature itself. The Pacific is custodian to the largest ocean on Earth. To protect the ocean is to protect the climate. COP30 must ensure a global commitment to zero deforestation by 2030, and it must place marine ecosystem at the heart of climate and biodiversity negotiations. We need support for coastal resilience, mangrove restoration, and community-led adaptation solutions rooted in indigenous knowledge to restore balance with creation. We must also speak of migration. For Tuvalu, relocation is no longer a distant conversation. Climate-induced displacement is our reality of life now. The Jubilee of Migrants reminds us that every displaced person carries not only just a body, but a culture, a memory, and a faith. International law must recognize climate migrants and guarantee their rights to dignity. Climate justice must mean cultural survival, not only physical relocation. Finally, I call for the building of global coalition for survival and justice, a coalition rooted in ethics, science, and human dignity. Together, North and South must transform global economy towards solidarity, sustainability, and equity. We must support community-led renewable energy and decentralized adaptation. And we must always put people, not profit, at the center of climate discussions. The Pacific brings moral clarity to this conversation. Survival must come before short-term profit. Our message is clear. Survival comes before short-term profit. At Laudato Si remind us, everything is interconnected. Our lands, our oceans, our culture, and our future. The voices of the most vulnerable must be heard, not only in Tuvalu, but across the world. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Talia, for your witness. Grazie davvero. Thank you. And now we open the floor for the questions of our colleagues. Who was first?
Question for Mr. Schwarzenegger. You said that you have to empower people, but at the same time, there are politicians who are going, there are politicians who are going in the other direction. For example, President Trump recently defined climate change con job at the United Nations. So how can you empower people when politicians go the other way around? Thank you.
You're talking to the right guy. When I was governor, we had the Bush administration. So the federal government had no interest in helping California with its environmental laws. As a matter of fact, many times stopped us. We needed what they called a waiver, which means the permission from the federal government to regulate our own air in California. Well, we went ahead anyway. And we passed one environmental law after the other. And when the federal government stopped us, we took them to court. And we went to court, the lower court, the higher court, to the Supreme Court of the United States. and there we beat them. We said, hasta la vista, baby. You see what I'm saying? So you never give up. You don't use the federal government as an excuse, because I already said that's an easy way out to say, oh my God, the federal government and the president doesn't agree with us, so therefore we'll just stop. No. There is no stopping. We have to do everything that we can, because, like I said, on the local level, the question is, what does the city hall do? What do the city officials do? What does the mayor do? What do the state legislators do? The state senate, the state assembly? What are all the universities doing? What are all the schools doing? I mean, look at the Vatican here. They said, well, we don't want to just talk about it. We're going to want to be the real deal. So they put solar on top of the roofs. And they're going to be the first sustainable and zero emissions, carbon neutral state, basically in what time? In a short period of time. So, I mean, just think about it. That's action. They didn't wait for the president or for the prime minister or for what anyone says. They went and showed action. So that's what I'm talking about. When I fly with a helicopter over warehouses and I don't see solar on top of those warehouses, that's where the action is. We created 1 million solar roofs, and you know what that meant? That immediately it cut the cost of solar panels by half. Now it's 1/3, because so much solar was produced. So it helped the economy. We had created hundreds and hundreds of thousands of jobs in the solar business. Then we brought Tesla to California. We didn't wait for the president to say, bring Tesla to California. We brought Tesla to California. California is not even remotely a car manufacturing state. But I said to Elon, Elon, look at this factory. You can have 20,000 people working here in no time. We give it to you. And then he moved in, and then they started building Tesla. See what I'm saying? So this is all on a state level. So when you talk about the president and you talk about this and that, it's all nonsense, all excuses. Just go ahead and ask yourself what you can do. Now I always tell people I would never walk away from an environmental conference like this or a press conference not telling the people what they can do. Ask yourself, do you really need jeans that are made in China? Do you really need a suit that is made in America? Do you really need something that is made in Canada or in South America? No. Every single time you buy anything from those places, you have to ship it. You have to ship it. Do you know that the 15 or 20 of the largest cargo ships in the world create more pollution than all of the cars in the world? And guess who is contributing to that? You. There is no president says that you must buy stuff overseas. I mean, in Italy, you have the best of everything. Just shop local. Shop local. And the same is in Austria, the same is in Germany. They all produce their own stuff. Shop local. You don't need anything from over there. This is how you create pollution. There's cargo ships. There's airplanes that ship and fly things around. And teach your kids to turn the lights off when you walk out of the room. I taught this to my kids. I said, every single time you walk out of the room and you don't turn the lights off, I unscrew the light bulb. I said, yeah, the chandelier has 7 light bulbs. I don't worry about that, Dad. Well, after the 7th day, it was dark. And then they were crying, because he was like 4 years old. He was crying, it's dark in my room. I said, well, then learn how to turn the lights off. You see what I'm saying? So this is what you have to do. What do you do in order to really cut down on emissions and cut down on pollution and all of those kind of things? So this is the question you have to ask. Don't just look at the president is saying this, the prime minister is saying that. Yeah, there's conservatives and there's liberals all over the world. That's why I say this climate conference that the UN is doing, this COP, is great because it brings people together. But don't wait that any solutions are coming out of that. I was there in Paris at the COP 21. All these countries were signing on the papers. They were signing and saying, we want to reduce pollution by 25%. And they were signing, and they had celebrations, and they were drinking French champagne. Now we found out that 70% of them didn't keep their promise. So here you are. But not because they're evil people. But when a president or prime minister goes there and says, I commit to 25% reductions, then he has to go home. And he has to go and pass it through the Senate and through the House, through the legislators, the lawmakers, because it's not a dictatorship. Right? So that's where they have the problem then. So they go home, like Bill Clinton, he promised anything. He was a great, great environmentalist. But when he went home, they told him, what's the matter with you? You're promising something over there. We have to pass it here. And they voted it down just to pay him back. So that's what goes on. So it's very, very difficult. That's why I said they should include also the subnational governments and the mayors, the governors and all this. That's where the action is. Everyone should come together because it needs everyone's participation. There's no one alone that can do that. The challenges are too huge. But I just want you to know, the Vatican is the real deal. They put solars on the roof. When I read that, I said, yes! They did it, and they showed to the world to be hands-on and not to wait for anyone else to make any suggestions or anything like this. They did it. That's what they call the true action heroes.
Thank you. Phil Polella, I believe.
My question is a little bit evolving on Jacopo's. It is addressed to Dr. Gold and to Governor Schwarzenegger. President Trump also said that climate, apart from saying that it's the biggest scam ever, he said that it's perpetrated by very stupid people. I'd like to give you an opportunity to respond to that if you wish, but I also would like to know, particularly from Dr. Gold, do you think that the fight against climate change and pollution can be won without the world's richest nation at the forefront? And getting back to something that Governor Schwarzenegger said, is that you did mention that there are 1.4 billion Roman Catholics, 400,000 priests, etc. But in our own country, in the United States, for example, there are 53 million Catholics, and many of them voted for President Trump and believe that climate change is a hoax. So how do parishes deal with that on the grassroots level when politics and ecology are so intertwined? Thank you.
Well, I think this is a question Okay, this is a question that they can answer, the Vatican can answer. How to do that, I can just tell you, as a Catholic that has gone endless amount of times to church, I've never heard a priest talk in a common sense wise what the people in the church could do when they go out and leave the church about the environment and about pollution. That was not the agenda because it's a spiritual place where you get pumped up spiritually, obviously. But I think that this is something that they are going to work on, obviously, and how to do that communication and how to reach out. And maybe you want to address that a little bit.
La dottoressa Lorda, forse, a cui il giornalista aveva chiesto. Grazie, dottoressa.
Thank you. With regards to whether we can do this without the largest economy in the world, we've been here before. If you're referring to the US withdrawing from COP, it's happened before and things continued. And I think, as Arnold said, we need to continue. We can't afford to wait. So we will continue, and we need to move forward with all of the subnational level institutions, non-governmental organisations, but in particular the state level and the city level. And that's where the action is going to move forward in the next number of years. So I would say, yes, we can move forward. And within the US, it's going to happen at the subnational level and the state level. With regards to the response of the Catholic Church, I think that in relation to Laudato Si, much has happened, as you've heard from the various contributions so far, but it's a drop in the ocean. And the vista ahead of us in terms of working with the vast number of Catholic entities out there and individuals, it's huge. There's a big job to do. But one of the great things at this stage, 10 years since Laudato Si, which other papal encyclical do you remember that we were talking about 10 years later? And that there was just as much interest as there is in this one. So I think that first, this has been an encyclical that's had a significant communications impact and will continue. The message resonates within the Catholic Church and far beyond. We have the Laudato Si Action platform, which is a tremendous online platform which is engaging, provides an avenue for all different kinds of Catholic institutions to sign up and to participate. We have our movement, which is in 145 countries now, has 60 national chapters, and many tens of thousands of people who are active in their parishes promoting Laudato Si. I'd say one of the challenges we need is in relation to formation, in relation to our seminaries, in relation to shaping the future preachers, the future leaders of our church. Because you're right, I don't think I've heard my own parish priest preach about Laudato Si or environmental issues, and I'm sure that's quite common. But I don't go with the naysayers either. I say we can do it. We have to do it. Our children's future, our planet depends on it, so we will do it.
Eminenza, lei.
Your Eminence would like to add something. We spoke about political leaders. Now, their greatest fear is the fear of the street, as it were. When the grassroots start to clamour, politicians tremble. Not statespersons, they don't tremble, but politicians do. So I think that in this process, the fundamental thing is to promote knowledge and the sciences in our schools, in our universities, and to work with originary peoples, indigenous peoples and NGOs. I think this is the right way. We can't expect a top-down change. We need to create an awareness at the bottom of the pyramid. And I think determination is the key word. And at the same time, echoing what you said earlier, what can I do here, where I am now, today? And if we expect decisions to come from the outside, we won't progress. Clearly, dialogue between governmental institutions is important, of course, but the market and the economy is and can be a dictatorship. And against dictatorship, only the strength of a united and aware people can work, and this is what we expect will happen. Our time has run out. I think we have our colleague from the Croatian television. Unfortunately, our guests have other commitments. Thank you. Angela, dalla Radio Televisione.
For Mr. Schwarzenegger, in your social engagement, what is your particular inspiration? Or in other words, who is your hero? Thank you.
Well, when I became governor, I was not an environmentalist. I drove big trucks, the Hummers. And then when I became governor, I wanted to make a difference. I felt that God gave me this opportunity for a reason. And I said, what can we do? And one of the things that was brought up to me was the environment. And so I sat down with scientists, hundreds of them, and all of a sudden I got this education. The capital in Sacramento became my best university. I learned about things that I've never ever known. If it's about the economy, if it is about the environment, if it is about labor, about affordability, housing, homelessness, all of those kind of issues. And one of them was the environment. And I heard that how many people are dying every year because of pollution. And I said, this is inexcusable. What can we do on a local level here or on a state level? And it was laid out to me, and we went very aggressively after this. And I felt like this is my opportunity to do something. And I felt kind of all of a sudden this was like a reoccurring thing, like with my fitness movement, where I was talking and no one would listen. Then eventually people started listening, and it started happening. And so the same thing was with the environment. The only thing was that I felt like we are not communicating the right way. So I was really trying hard to figure out how do I get people on my side, even though these were liberal people in California. But how do I get them on my side? And then we found out when we did the research that all of the work that has been done about climate change and zero emissions and carbon neutral and all of those terminologies didn't mean anything to people. What meant something to them was when we started talking about the health effect, the health in the children, the health on grown-ups, how many people die every year and all this. And there was the American Lung Association that sent me a little TV spot, a little commercial of a little child with an inhaler and fading away. That commercial, I looked at that and I said, as if that's what we have to play. When we played that, everyone was on our board. Everyone was supporting us. Even though the fossil fuel companies, the oil companies, and the coal companies spent millions and millions and millions of dollars against us to make us look stupid and like we're going backwards and the economy will be terrible. It didn't matter. Even though they were 60% ahead, all of a sudden came election day, we were 62% ahead, and we won. And we got all of these environmental laws passed, and we beat them because we learned how to communicate. See, that's the important thing. Everyone always talks and talks and talks and talks. But remember, God gave us 2 ears and only 1 mouth. So let's talk only half and let's listen twice as much. And so I was listening to the people. What are they saying? What do they want to hear? So that's when we go back to what we talked about. We started speaking to them to the heart. And it was effective. And so what I'm doing today is that I'm so enthusiastic about this, what I learned in California, that I want to run around the world and I want to tell everybody about it. I said, guys, you have meetings and conferences and this and that, and you talk and talk and talk. But we know exactly how to do it. We have done it in California. You have to make some changes. Don't do the same thing over and over again. Make the changes. And then you will be successful too. And that's exactly what we did. California has the blueprint. And I have to give credit to Tony Blair, Prime Minister Tony Blair, a liberal. I called him, I said, can you help me with this cap and trade when I was governor? I said, you guys did it in England. He came to California and he taught us how to do it the right way and how to write the law the right way. That's how a conservative works together with a liberal. You see what I'm saying? He didn't say, oh, you're a conservative, you're a Republican, blah, blah. No. Because my heroes, when you talk about heroes, my heroes is Teddy Roosevelt, who protected all of the land in America so that no one can build on it. Or Ronald Reagan, who created the air resources board in California that makes us able to do the things that they did with the environment. Or President Nixon. Everyone knows him for Watergate, but no one knows he created the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, as a conservative. Those were the good days. Okay, so this is what I'm saying. These were my heroes when it comes to the environment.
I would like to thank all my guests, all my speakers. And just a practical point for our guests, please remain here so photographers can do their work, so we can all stand up. And then I would give my colleague journalists a warning. Our speakers are not available. They need to leave and be present elsewhere, so no interviews. Thank you. Thank you kindly, thank you for your interest, and thank you for being here.
Laudato Jesus Christus, Vatican and World News.
In the headlines this Friday, September 26th, the UN warns the deadly cycles of violence in the Middle East risk point of no return. Pope Leo appoints a new prefect of the dicastery for bishops. And the Jubilee of Catechists kicks off in the Vatican. In the Vatican, I'm Deborah Castellana-Lubov. Beginning with the Middle East, the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres warns that one is approaching a point of no return in Gaza as the violence continues unabated. Nathan Morley reports.
Mr. Guterres said cycles of deadly violence, including by extremist settlers, have entrenched an unlawful Israeli occupation and pushed us perilously close to the point of no return. He condemned Israel's approval of construction in the E1 area, warning it would sever the West Bank and destroy the territorial continuity of a future Palestinian state. He said Israeli settlements are not just a political issue, they are a flagrant violation of international law. Guterres praised France and Saudi Arabia for reviving a high-level conference on the two-state solution and welcomed recent recognitions of Palestinian statehood. He urged nations to seize the momentum. On Gaza's future, he called for a framework rooted in international law, rejecting ethnic cleansing and ensuring a clearer path to statehood. He demanded an end to settler violence and annexation threats and urged Israel to comply with the International Court of Justice rulings. Elsewhere, vital hospital departments in Gaza are currently on the brink of collapse due to a fuel shortage, according to health authorities, who have said that patients and the wounded face a risk of certain death. Efforts to ration generator power have failed, prompting an urgent appeal for fuel deliveries to keep medical services running. Technical and engineering measures are no longer effective, according to authorities. The warning follows Israeli strikes that forced 2 Gaza City hospitals to shut down on Monday. Health officials say both hospitals were rendered non-functional following repeated shelling. For Vatican Radio, this is Nathan Morley reporting.
Amidst the ongoing carnage in Gaza, the film How Kids Roll, screened at the Vatican Film Library on Thursday, seeks to bring a message of hope and of fraternity that in the eyes of the young is still possible. The movie, loosely based on real events, tells the story of 2 boys, an Israeli and a Palestinian, who learn to overcome their differences through a mutual love of surfing, demonstrating that in a world torn apart by conflict and violence, children can teach adults an alternative to hatred. Christopher Wells reports.
How Kids Roll, the Children of Gaza, Riding the Waves of Freedom, directed by Loris Lai and nominated for the 2025 Davide Di Donatello Award for Best Directorial Debut, carries a powerful message of responsibility and hope, launched by children themselves, who in their innocence and purity refuse to become one another's enemies. On the contrary, they seek possible futures for living through friendship. The film is an appeal to fraternity that emerges from the example of the 2 main characters, Mahmoud, a Palestinian boy from Gaza, and Alon, an Israeli boy living in a settlement. Their bond extended beyond filming as the 2 actors who portrayed the main characters testified during a screening of the film on Thursday at the Vatican Film Library. Set in Gaza in 2003, during the Second Intifada, the story follows the 2 boys who are united by their passion for surfing, which allows them to find common ground despite the climate of hatred and hardship in which they live. Speaking with Vatican News at Thursday's screening, director Loris Lai explained the message of How Kids Roll.
So the message of the film is exactly that. Through sport, the kids are able to limit that gap that divides them. And because of that, because they share the mutual love for something so pure like a sport, in our case, surfing, they realize that at the end of the day, there's not that difference doesn't even exist.
One of the movie's producers, Tarak Ben Ammar, echoed the director's thoughts.
We made the movie before October 7th, not ever thinking of the tragedy that we are all living on both sides. So actually, more than ever, this film should send a message of peace, of dialogue, of fraternity, hoping that these kids will give the adults a lesson of peace. The 2 actors were afraid of meeting each other, and so were the parents of these 2 actors, Palestinians and Israelis. During the filming, they became friends, the families and themselves, and now they are real friends. This is a proof that art, sometimes better than politics, can mend the difficulties and the differences.
Thank you, Christopher Wells, for that report. In other headlines, addressing the UN Security Council, Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher highlighted both the opportunities and dangers of artificial intelligence. As Linda Bordoni reports, the Vatican Secretary for Relations with States called for an immediate moratorium on lethal autonomous weapons and highlighted the need for a human-centered approach to ensure respect for human dignity and the common good.
Artificial intelligence holds great promise for humanity, but it also carries serious risks when it replaces human judgment, especially in matters of life and death. This was the warning delivered by Archbishop Paul Richard Gallagher, Vatican Secretary for Relations with States and International Organizations, during an open debate at the United Nations Security Council this week. Archbishop Gallagher highlighted the rapid evolution of AI and its impact across education, healthcare, governance, and the military. While AI can support sustainable development and human rights, he stressed, without grounding it in human dignity and the common good, these technologies risk becoming instruments of division and aggression. He expressed particular concern about lethal autonomous weapon systems, noting they lack the unique human capacity for moral judgment and ethical decision-making. The Holy See, he said, strongly supports an immediate moratorium on such weapons and a legally binding framework to ensure decisions over life and death remain under meaningful human control. The Archbishop also cautioned against a new arms race fueled by AI integration.